Hey, buddy, hit that subscribe. Just a sec for you, but it means the world to me. I didn't freak out when I saw the envelope duct taped under the dashboard of my pickup. No shaking hands. No racing heart. Just this heavy, sinking feeling in my gut that told me everything I needed to know. I was parked in my driveway in Maple Ridge, early November, engine off, heater ticking as it cooled. The wind was snapping through the trees like it had an attitude problem. I peeled the envelope loose with 2 fingers. Thick, too thick for paperwork. Cash thick, or worse. And yeah, I knew who put it there. My son, Evan. Instead of opening it, I walked across the gravel, popped open Evan's Toyota Corolla, and slid the envelope into his glove compartment. Shut it, locked it, done. Then I went inside, poured myself a cup of burnt coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and waited. 20-something minutes later, sirens lit up the street. Let me rewind. My name's Mark Dalton. I'm 66 years old. I gave 38 years of my life to a manufacturing plant outside Hamilton, fixing machines most people didn't even know existed. I retired quiet, no gold watch, no big speech. Just tired bones and a bad knee. My wife, Elaine, passed 4 years ago. Cancer, the kind that doesn't care how good of a person you are. We raised 2 kids in a small, paid-off house. No fancy vacations. No handouts. We scraped, saved, and somehow got both kids through college debt-free. That was our flex. That was the win. Evan's my youngest. Late 30s. Married. 1 kid. My granddaughter Sophie. 7 years old. Smart as hell, always asking questions that stop you mid-sentence. For most of his life, I thought Evan was solid. Maybe not perfect, but solid. Job in sales. Nice car. Suburban life. The whole, I made it starter pack. Turns out, I was dead wrong. It started 3 months earlier when Evan asked to borrow my truck for a weekend. Said his car was acting weird. Transmission issue, maybe? I didn't question it. He'd borrowed it before. IKEA runs. Lumber. Normal stuff. When he brought it back Sunday night, something fell off. Evan couldn't sit still. Phone buzzing every few seconds. Eyes darting like he was waiting for someone to kick the door in. I asked if he was okay. He snapped, then apologized. Said work was stressful. Monday morning, I found a small plastic bag shoved between the seat and console. Empty but not clean. That smell doesn't lie. I tried to talk myself out of it. Tried real hard. 6 weeks later, he borrowed the truck again. This time I watched. He sat in the driver's seat after parking. 5 minutes. Phone pressed his ear. Looking around like he was in a bad movie. After he left, I searched the truck. And that's when I found the burner phone tucked under the carpet by the pedals. Cheap. Prepaid. Loaded with coded messages. Addresses. Times. One text hit me like a punch to the chest. Old guy's truck is perfect. Nobody ever checks a grandpa. I sat there for an hour. Reading. Rereading. Feeling something crack inside me. My kid was moving drugs. And he was using me as cover. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed to know how deep the hole was before I decided whether to pull him out or let him fall. So I waited. And when Evan came over that Saturday, sat across from me in the kitchen where his mom used to make pancakes, I slid the burner phone across the table. His face drained of color. That's when I knew. No matter what he said next, I was already too late. I still believed, right then, that I could scare him straight. That a hard talk and a little father-son honesty could fix everything. I had no idea that within weeks, I'd be forced to make a choice that would put my own son in handcuffs and make him hate me for years. And the worst part? I'd do it again. When Evan finally spoke, his voice didn't sound like my son's. It was calm, too calm, like he was already rehearsing lies in his head. Dad, it's not what you think. That line right there? That's how you know it's exactly what you think. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't slam the table. I just sat there, hands folded, waiting. Silence can mess with people way more than yelling ever will. He told me a story. Not the truth, a story. Said he'd gotten mixed up in a bad business deal. Claimed he owed some people money. Said they pressured him to do a few favors. Just temporary. Just until he paid it back. I asked how much. He said 20 grand. Then 30. Then shrugged like the number didn't really matter. That's when I knew he was in deep. When you don't even know what you owe, you're already drowning. I told him straight, you use my truck, my name's on that registration. If you get stopped, that's me on the hook too. He nodded fast. Too fast. Promised he was done. Swore this was the last time. Threw his kid's name into the mix like a shield. I'd never put Sophie at risk, Dad. That one hurt, because if he truly believed that, he wouldn't be sitting there lying to my face. I told him to walk away. Right now. Cut ties. Change numbers. Do whatever it took. He looked at me like I was a child. Dad, you don't just walk away from guys like this. That sentence stuck with me. Sat heavy in my chest long after he left. A week later, he asked to borrow the truck again. I said yes. That's when I stopped being a father who hoped and became a father who watched. I followed him that morning in my late wife's old sedan. Stayed back. Kept my distance. He didn't go anywhere near a hardware store. He hit a coffee shop parking lot off the highway. Sat there. Waited. Then a black luxury sedan pulled up. Short conversation. A bag exchange. Quick handshake. Then another stop. Then another. Clean. Efficient. Like he'd done this 100 times. By the time he brought my truck back, I had photos of everything. Faces, plates, locations. I smiled at him, told him drive safe, and felt sick to my stomach. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, pictures spread out like evidence from a crime show. Because that's what it was now. A crime. And my son was right in the middle of it. I thought about calling the cops. Then I thought about my granddaughter. About my daughter-in-law. About what happens when dangerous people realize someone talked. I could already hear my wife's voice in my head. You can't save him by doing nothing. The plan didn't come all at once. It built slowly, piece by piece. Ugly, risky, but necessary. 3 weeks later, Evan called again. Same routine. Same excuse. Dad, I hate to ask, but can I borrow the truck tomorrow? I said yes. This time, though, I already knew how the story was going to end. What Evan didn't know was that before he even turned the key in my truck, I had already made the hardest decision of my life. And by the end of that day, one envelope would decide whether my son lived long enough to become a better man, or destroyed himself completely. The morning Evan took my truck, that last time, I woke up before my alarm. Didn't need it. My body already knew something ugly was coming. I went outside just after sunrise, pretending to check the tire pressure. That's when I saw it. An envelope, taped clean under the dashboard. Not sloppy, not rushed. Whoever put it there knew exactly what they were doing. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I stood there for a solid minute, staring at it, feeling like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't step back from. Once you cross certain lines, there's no rewind button. I peeled it off, walked over to Evan's car, slid it into his glove compartment. Then I got in my house, sat at the table, and stared at the wall like a man waiting for a verdict. Before Evan even finished his run, I drove straight to the police station, hands shaking, heart pounding, pride swallowed. I told the desk officer I needed to report suspected drug trafficking. They didn't brush me off. They took me seriously. A detective came in, calm, sharp eyes, asked questions that cut straight through the nonsense. I showed him the photos, the locations, the burner phone messages I'd documented weeks earlier. I told him the truck was mine. The suspect was my son. Saying out loud felt like ripping my own chest open. They moved fast. They said they'd follow him, wait for the right moment, then stop him. Clean, controlled. I didn't tell them everything. I didn't tell them I'd already moved the envelope. 23 minutes after I got home, sirens hit the street. Evan was arrested in a grocery store parking lot. Cash, drugs, enough to ruin his life. My phone rang an hour later. My daughter-in-law, crying, confused, panicked. They arrested Evan. They're saying he's a dealer. This has to be a mistake. I told her to take Sophie and stay somewhere safe. Told her not to answer unknown calls. Told her to trust me, even though I knew how insane that sounded. Then the line went dead. I stood there holding my phone, realizing I had officially become the villain in my own family story. 3 days later, I visited Evan. Orange jumpsuit, handcuffs, hollow eyes. The moment he saw me, his face hardened. "You did this." I didn't deny it. I told him the truth. All of it. That I found the envelope. That I moved it. That I called the cops. He stared at me like I was a stranger. "You set me up." "No," I said quietly. "I stopped you." He laughed, sharp, bitter. "I'm going to prison because you love me." "You were already headed there," I told him. "Or worse." He slammed the phone down and turned his back on me. I sat there long after the guard took him away, wondering if I just saved my son or destroyed him forever. That night, I didn't sleep, because the arrest wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. What happened next would tear my family apart, force my son to make a deal with people far more dangerous than me, and change my granddaughter's life forever. And the part nobody warns you about? Sometimes doing the right thing feels exactly like betrayal. The days after Evan's arrest were pure chaos. No sleep, no appetite, just phone calls, paperwork, and that constant knot in my chest that wouldn't loosen. Bail was denied. The prosecutor didn't hold back. They painted Evan as more than just a guy in over his head. They called him a distribution link. Said the amount they found meant he wasn't some clueless middleman. I watched my son through courtroom glass and barely recognized him. My daughter-in-law filed for divorce a week later. I didn't blame her. She had a kid to protect, and fear makes people move fast. She took Sophie and stayed with her parents. Got a temporary restraining order against Evan. Said it was what the lawyer recommended. That one hit me harder than the arrest. Because prison you can survive. Losing your family? That breaks something deeper. A month later, Evan's lawyer called me, asked if I'd consider coming to a meeting. They wanted Evan to cooperate. Full cooperation. Names, routes, suppliers, everything. If he talked, the sentence could drop from double digits to something survivable. If he stayed quiet, he'd rot. I visited Evan again. This time, he looked smaller, thinner. Reality had finally caught up. "They want me to flip," he said. "I don't even know if I make out alive if I do." "You don't make it out alive if you don't," I told him. He stared at the floor for a long time. Then he nodded. Over the next 2 months, Evan talked. A lot. And when he talked, dominoes fell. Arrests, raids, names that had been circling police radars for years finally got pulled in. The deal was set 8 years. Parole eligible in 3. Not freedom, but a future. On sentencing day, Evan looked at me from across the courtroom. I couldn't tell if he hated me or finally understood me. Maybe both. Afterward, a detective pulled me aside. "You probably saved his life," he said. I nodded, but it didn't feel like a win. For 6 months, Evan wouldn't speak to me. Not a word. Then one day, the phone rang. "Dad, I've been thinking." That call didn't fix anything, but it cracked the door open. I thought the worst was behind us. I was wrong, because rebuilding a relationship after betrayal, even justified betrayal, is harder than stopping a crime. And the real test wasn't whether Evan would survive prison. It was whether our family would survive the truth. Evan started calling once a month. Same day, same time, always short. At first, it was just surface-level stuff. Food sucked. So was loud. Too much time to think. Not enough time to forget. He didn't ask about his ex, didn't ask about court. Only asked about Sophie. Every single time. I'd tell him she was doing okay. School, friends, piano lessons, normal kid stuff. I could hear him breathing heavier when I talked about her. Guilt does that. Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, stayed distant at first. I respected that. Trust doesn't come back just because someone feels bad. But slowly, she let me back in. Weekends with Sophie became our routine. Cookies, movies, board games. The kind of simple stuff that suddenly feels priceless when everything else is broken. One Saturday, Sophie asked me why her dad couldn't come home. I told her the truth, the kid-safe version, that sometimes adults make bad choices, and sometimes they need help learning how to do better. She thought about that for a second, then said, "So like, when I get sent a timeout?" I smiled. Yeah, exactly like that. Months passed. Evan changed. Not magically, not overnight, but real change, the kind that hurts. He started therapy, took classes, volunteered in the prison library, helped other inmates learn to read. One night, he called me off schedule. "Dad, do you think Mom would have done what you did?" That question hit me hard. I told him yes, without hesitation. There was a long silence. Then, "Thank you." That's when I finally slept through the night for the first time in years. I thought that was closure. But life doesn't end stories neatly. Because one conversation with my granddaughter would force me to question everything all over again and decide whether I truly believed the choice I made was the right one. Last weekend, Sophie and I were baking cookies. Chocolate chip, the kind that somehow end up half-eaten before they ever hit the oven. She had flour on her nose and music playing off my phone. Total mess. Total peace. Out of nowhere, she looked up at me and said, "Grandpa, my teacher says family means we take care of each other no matter what. Is that true?" I froze, because that question carries weight when your family's been broken by handcuffs and courtrooms. I thought about Evan in prison, about the look on his face the day he realized I wasn't there to rescue him. I was there to stop him. I thought about my late wife, about the way she used to say that love isn't loud, it's steady. I knelt down and looked Sophie in the eyes. "Yes," I said, "but sometimes taking care of someone means making hard choices. Choices they don't like. Choices that hurt in the moment." She nodded slowly. "Like bedtime." I laughed. Exactly like bedtime. That night, after she fell asleep on the couch, I sat alone and let it all hit me. People would judge me. Some already had. A father who turned in his own son? That's a label that sticks. But I knew the truth. If I had stayed silent, Evan wouldn't be getting better. He'd be dead. Or worse. Love isn't about keeping people comfortable. Sometimes love is about stopping them before they destroy everything, including themselves. Evan calls more now. Talks about parole. About being a dad again someday. And when that day comes, I'll be there. Not as the man who saved him. Not as the man who betrayed him. But as the father who loved him enough to make the hard call. People ask me if I regret it, if I'd do it again. Here's the truth. I don't know if I did the right thing, but I know I did the necessary thing, because consequences are temporary. And love, real love, is choosing life, even when it breaks your heart.